Many people have got a bad habit of saying that he is not a believer. I will pray for him or I will pray for her. He is going to get converted. And today we will be looking at what does the scripture has to say about the marriages between Christians and unbelievers. Welcome to One Truth, and thank you for joining me today. It is such a great delight that you have welcomed me in the comfort of your homes. And here we will keep you motivated and encouraged. Our main mission is to build families for eternity in the hasty and the soon second coming of Christ. So now, as we are looking at this wonderful book, we are looking at Adventist Home. And today we will be looking at this tightly forbidden marriages and marriages of Christians with unbelievers. This takes me to a time as I was in high school. As we look at that in high school, there is always a peer pressure. Each and everyone wants to have a partner. And I had to get myself one. And it was looking so nice. And we finished our high school. Everything was looking great. But now, as we're looking at the two of us, we're two different people with a different mentality, with a different faiths. But we just looked at it for granted. So as time went on, I was looking at her thinking that, no, this is the right person for me. I'm going to get married to this lady. As time went by, things did not go well along the way and we had to separate. So after some time, we were conversing. She says to me, do you know that I drink? Then I was like to her, why do you say so? When did that happen? And she says to me, I used to drink, just that I respected you. That's why I did not drink. So many a times we look at the people and we say that because we love them, because everything looks so good, and we say this is the right person that I have to get married to, but not realizing that it's going to affect you. Firstly, we have to look at the faith. We are looking at that you say you are believers, but at the same time, your faiths are different. One is a Sabbath keeper, one is the Sunday keeper. What kind of a family will that be? On the Sabbath, we look at the father will go to church with the children, and on Sunday, the mother wants to go to church, and she also invites the children. Now you are making the children to be confused. Who are they have to go with? And looking at that scenario, it tends to affect many families. You look at the father is a drunkard, the mother is not. Now, as the children are looking at that, they tend to get so confused. You take the children to the church, but now when you look at your husband, he has got a different mentality. He teaches children different things. So, in that kind of a family, we can conclude to say that some marriages are forbidden. And as we continue further looking at the marriage of Christians with unbelievers, there is in the Christian world an astonishing, alarming indifference to the teaching of God's word in regard to the marriage of Christians with unbelievers. Men who profess to love and fear God choose to follow the bent of their own minds rather than take counsel of infinite wisdom. In a matter which vitally concerns the happiness and well-being of both parties for this world and the next, reason, judgment, and the fear of God are set aside, and blind impulse, stubborn determination are allowed to control. So many times we look at these people, they might have been warned, but they don't want to listen. As it happened to me, most of my friends, they told me, like, no, this girl is not the best for you. But at that time, I was blind enough. I did not even want to listen. I did not reason well, and I continued further up until I got at the end of the day where to separate. But now, as we look at this, most of the times we look at the people make mistakes in their marriages. They have been warned, but they don't listen. One man was sharing with me, telling about his story. He says, I was a very active person when it comes to God's work. And as I was looking at that, there is this lady, I was working with her, and I liked her so much. And as much as I was attracted to her, I thought this is the best person for me. But now we're coming from different worlds. And I had to introduce the Sabbath prayer. I had to introduce a number of things. And then this person was willing, and we agreed that we get married. And she was willing to leave aside all these other things, and she goes with me. So he says, we got married. And after we got married, 3 months down the line, she changed completely. And she says, I'm my own person. I do make decisions by myself. You don't have to make decisions for me. You don't have to tell me what to believe and not to believe. I believe what I want. You found me like this and you took me like this. Yes, I agreed with you that I'm going to learn and go with you in your faith. But I have seen that no, this is not for me. It doesn't work for me. And I feel it's better I remain like this. So this man was greatly traumatized, looking at the woman that he thought that is the best for him. Now the tables are turning. It tends to be that he has poisoned himself. So as we look at the friends, they might have told him, of course they did, saying to him, this is not the best wife for you. But he did not want to listen. He put some stick on his ears so that he cannot hear. And as a result, his marriage did not go well. And many people today, their marriages are full of misery and sorrow because they neglected to look at the spiritual aspect of the person that they are willing to be equally yoked with. So as we continue further, we are looking at men and women who are otherwise sensible and conscientious close their ears to counsel. They are deaf to the appeals and entreaties of friends and kindred and of the servants of God. The expression of a caution or warning is regarded as impertinent meddling, and the friend who is faithful enough to utter a remonstrance is treated as an enemy. All this is as Satan would have it. He weaves his spell about the soul, and it becomes bewitched, infatuated. Reason lets fall the reins of oneself upon the neck of lust. Unsanctified passion bears sway until too late. The victim awakens for a life of misery and bondage. This is not a picture drawn by the imagination, but a radical of facts. God's sanction is not given to unions which he has expressly forbidden. So as a result, they put themselves on a carrying yoke that it will be very hard for them to bear it. And as we look at this, they realize when it's already too late. There is no way that one has to reverse. You have to continue going forward because you have already taken the course. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure that you do subscribe. And we've already spoke about other presentations about the Christian couple. Please make sure that you go check up there. You will find a number of presentations prepared for you. And if you are young men contemplating marriage, it is high time that you look at the aspects of marriage. We have got a presentation on that. Make sure that you go and visit it. God's commands are plain. The Lord commanded ancient Israel not to intermarry with the idolaters, nations around them. Neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. The reason is given. Infinite wisdom, foreseeing the result of such unions, declares, for they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may save other gods. So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you and destroy thee suddenly. For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth. So as God already saw that it is not good for his people that they to marry with the idolatrous nations. Now as we look at the man by the name Solomon, is one of the wisest men that has ever lived, that God has given him so much wisdom. And with the wisdom that he had, he now ventured to the search of women, and he had a number of women. And as he had all these women, they ended up taking him away from God, and he ended up being an idolater because of the wrong companions that he chose for himself. So if one has to go and look at for infidels, the people who are unbelievers, and you take them and put them in your circle, the influence which they have is far much more higher than you might imagine. So it's easy for them to take you down because you're looking at that. You are not at the same level. You are high, and that person is down. So as that person is on a low on a low environment, is able to have enough effort and strength and power to pull you down, and as a result, you won't be able to stand up and continue working going forward. So in the New Testament are similar prohibitions concerning the marriage of Christians with the ungodly. The Apostle Paul, in his first letter to the Corinthians, declares, the wife is bound by the law as long as the husband liveth. Let's pay close attention to that. But if a husband be dead, she is at liberty to be married to whom she will, only in the Lord. Again, in his second epistle, he writes, be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness? And what communion hath light with darkness? And what concord hath Christ with Belial? Or what party hath he that believeth with an infidel? And what agreement hath the temple of God with idols? For ye are the temple of the living God. As God hath said, I will dwell in them and walk in them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Wherefore, come out from among them, and be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you, and will be a father unto you, and you shall be my sons and daughters, saith the Lord Almighty. So, as we have already looked at this, what concords is righteousness with unrighteousness. There is no way that you can put oil with water, that it will go together. It will never go together. So, as we look at this, these are two different things. We are looking at light and darkness. These are uncomparable. You cannot compare these two. And also, as we look at Paul, as he was writing here, saying that the wife is bound by the law for so long as the husband liveth. So now, if you have already got married to someone whom you realize that is not the right person for you, what will you do? Because you are bound to the law, to that person. Till death do you part. You have to continue with being with that person. But now, if everything is not going well, because you know that the scripture is saying that you can only marry when your partner dies. But if your partner still liveth, you cannot marry. You will end up wishing that your partner should die so that you can have another partner. So as we look at this, now you are not wishing something good for that person. You end up wishing bad for the person. The case of God rests upon many of the ill-timed, inappropriate connections that are formed in this age of the world. If the Bible left these questions in a vague, uncertain light, then the cause that many youth of today are pursuing in their attachments for one another would be more excusable. But the requirements of the Bible are not halfway injunctions. They demand perfect purity of thought, of word, and of deed. We are grateful to God that His word is a light to the feet, and none need mistake the path of duty. The young should make it a business to consult its pages and heed its counsel, for said mistakes are always made in departing from its precepts. So for one not to make the very same mistakes that others have made, you are to always make sure that you put Christ at the center of everything and let him be the leader and guide. And don't venture yourself into the forbidden ground. You look at that, you know about a certain place that there is a river there, and in that river, as you love swimming in there, but there is a crocodile in there. But then you say, I will go and swim. I will swim there. I will have to be cautious enough as I will be swimming. But you, as yourself, you are putting yourself in danger, not realizing that you might be eaten and being broken into pieces by the crocodile, because that's where is its territory, and it has got more power and influence if you have to go there where it is. And most of the times we go and look for trouble by ourselves, saying that I'm going to pray for this person, it's going to work out. It doesn't work like that. No matter how loving, no matter how spiritual the person might look to be, as long as your faith is different, don't venture. That is an unforbidden ground. When you look at Eve, she was wandering around, and now also the serpent is coming to you, telling you that, did God say you should not eat of these trees, of these fruits? And then she says, yes, God said you should not eat, but this one of the knowledge of good and evil should not touch. And then now the serpent says, because God knows that in the day thou shalt eat, you shall be like God. So when Eve hears that, he thought that I'm going to be like a God. And Eve got the fruit, ate, and then gave it to Adam. They were not supposed to touch, just to go near the tree. They were not supposed to. But because she thought of going next to that tree, now she ended up eating of the forbidden tree that led to their destruction. So we look at that. God forbids believers marrying unbelievers. Never should God's people venture upon forbidden ground. Marriage between believers and unbelievers is forbidden by God. But too often the unconverted heart follows its own desires, and marriage is unsanctified by God are formed. Because of this, many men and women are without hope and without God in the world. Their noble aspirations are dead. By a chain of circumstances, they are held in Satan's net. Those who are ruled by passion and impulse will have a bitter harvest to reap in this life, and their course may result in the loss of their souls. Those who profess the truth tremble on the will of God in marrying unbelievers. They lose their favor and make bitter work for repentance. The unbelieving may possess an excellent moral character, but the fact that he or she has not answered to the claims of God and he has neglected so great salvation is sufficient reason why such a union should not be consummated. The character of the unbelieving may be similar to that of the young men to whom Jesus addressed the words, one thing thou lackest. That was the one thing needful. So as this rich young ruler, as he goes to Jesus, he says that, I have done everything. What is left for me to inherit the kingdom of heaven? And it is said to him, keep the commandments. And he says that I have done this already in my youthful time. And then says, one thing thou lackest. Go and sell everything that you have. And what did that rich young man do? He thought of everything that he has worked so hard for. Now he has to go and give it to the poor. No, he left. So there is one thing that he lackest and that he needed. Now let's look at the example of Solomon. They are men of poverty and obscurity, whose lives God would accept and make full of usefulness on earth and of glory in heaven. But Satan is working persistently to defeat his promises and drag them down to perdition by marriage with those whose character is such that they throw themselves directly across the road to life. Very few come out from this entanglement triumphant. Satan well knew the result that would attend obedience. And during the earlier years of Solomon's reign, he was glorious because of the wisdom, the beneficence, and the uprightness of the king. He sought to bring in influences that would insidiously undermine Solomon's loyalty to principle and cause him to separate from God. And that the enemy was successful in this effort. We know from the record, Solomon made affinity with the Pharaoh's king of Egypt, and he took Pharaoh's daughter and brought her into the seat of David. In forming an alliance with a heathen nation and sealing the compact by marriage with an idolatrous princess, Solomon rashly disregarded the wise provisions that God had made for maintaining the purity of his people. The hope that this Egyptian wife might be converted was but a feeble excuse for the sin. In violation of a direct command to remain separate from other nations, the king united his strength with the arm of flesh. For a time, God, in his compassionate mercy, overruled this terrible mistake. Solomon's wife was converted, and the king, by a wise course, might have done much to check the evil forces that his imprudence yet set in operation. But Solomon began to lose sight of the source of his power and glory. Inclination gained the ascendance over reason. As his self confidence increased, he sought to carry out the Lord's purpose in his own way. Many professed Christians think, like Solomon, that they may unite with ungodly because their influence over those who are in the wrong will be beneficial. But too often they themselves, entrapped and overcome, yield their sacred faith, sacrifice the principle, and separate themselves from God. One false step leads to another, till at last they place themselves where they cannot hope to break the chains that bind them. So many times people, they tend to overlook the spiritual aspect of the one that they want to unite with. So as a result, they find themselves in different challenges that they will not be able to come out of it. So as like Solomon did, he went on and he took Pharaoh's daughter. And as he put in someone who was an idolater, he did not realize that that was going to affect him on his way. So we are to guard jealously to make sure that we don't find ourselves in these kind of problems. The plea, he is favorable to religion. The plea is sometimes made that the unbeliever is favorable to religion and in all that could be desired in a companion except in one thing. He is not a Christian, although the better judgment of the believer may suggest the impropriate of a union for life with an unbeliever. Yet in 9 cases out of 10, inclinations triumphs. Spiritual declension commences the moment that the vow is made at the altar. Religious favor is dampened, and one stronghold after another is broken down until both stand side by side under the black banner of Satan. Even in the festivities of the wedding, the spirit of the world triumphs against conscience, faith, and truth. In the new home, the hour of prayer is not respected. The bride and bridegroom have chosen each other and dismissed Jesus. As a result, their union is not blessed because they've already dismissed Jesus with their wrong union. And we look at that, the hour of prayer is not respected. So we look at these kind of families that don't even have time for prayer. And as a result, Jesus Christ has been left aside. He has been dismissed. No, we are fine like that. We are fine by ourselves. And as a result, they are left alone. And as we look at Saul, King Saul, because of what he did, the Spirit of the Lord was taken out from him. And now he was left alone. And he became something else. And when we look at one who does not have Christ in his heart, that person is left alone. He tends to live a miserable life. And on our next live stream, we'll be looking at the change that is wrought in the believing one. So make sure that you join me in the presentation as we continue to look at this. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure that you do subscribe. Share us your thoughts on the comment section. We'll really appreciate that. And make sure that you give us a thumbs up. That would be greatly appreciated. I wish you all a wonderful day. That would be greatly